Hi, I'm Joe Walensky, and I'm the program manager for Seattle's annual User Experience Conference. And so that's coming up February 27, 28, and March 1. And I get to talk with our many interesting speakers. Today I am talking with Sarah Garcia. Hello, Sarah. How are you doing today?
Good, yeah. How are you doing?
Oh, everything's going pretty well at the Blink UX offices in downtown Seattle. Where are you talking to us from?
I am in sunny but cold for California, San Jose. So it's sunny out there, but it was 50 degrees, which for me as a native Californian is too cold.
Well, glad to have you as part of the conference, and just to introduce yourself to prospective attendees, give us a little bit of information about your background, the organization that you work for, and the nature of your work.
Sure. So I have been, I started off with a marketing degree back in the day, and loved marketing, but just kind of found it to be a little bit maybe too, I don't know, boring for me in some ways. And so I started working at at UE Group, which is a consulting firm, a UX consulting firm, and just sort of started helping out while I had little kids. And one thing grew into another, and I realized I could take kind of this marketing background that I had with kind of my natural interest in people and kind of psychology and all of that, and then a love of sort of science and those kind of processes, to be able to take that all together and put that into a career that I never knew existed, to be honest. I had no idea that there was such a thing as a UX type of a career. So I've been at UE Group now for 13 years. This December was my 13th year here. I think that speaks to the fact that we're a consulting firm, so not any week or month or year is ever the same, and we've got all kinds of different clients from tons of different industries that keeps things really fresh and exciting.
Well, so you mentioned UE Group doing consulting. That means you're always involved in a lot of different projects, but kind of just reflecting on this past year as we come to the end of it, any insights or things that captivated your interest or kept you particularly busy?
Yeah, I mean, this year, if I had to come up with kind of a word for 2017, for me it was on the road. I mean, I was participating in more on-the-road research than I think I probably ever have. And that's due, I think, to a lot of our clients' real interest in doing ethnography. So taking the research out of the lab and bringing it into people's homes or workplaces or hospitals or wherever we were going. So I've had to get really good at learning how to make the most of situations in terms of you only have like 15 minutes with someone and you got to get a bunch of insights. As well, how do you make a budget work when ethnography is really expensive? And so we've been working on, substituting out diary studies instead of actually going to someone's home, or doing like video chats like this rather than going. And while it's not the same as doing, maybe like the A-level ethnography, it's getting us closer to insights than we would if we didn't do that. So that's been something that I feel like I've been kind of working toward this year, of how to make that more agile and lean.
Well, yeah, it's good to get that insight on what's been keeping you busy this year. In terms of your talk for the conference, the title is Capturing and Measuring Emotion in UX. So why don't you talk a little bit about emotion and what we can expect from that session?
Yeah, so, several years ago, we were reporting out just the basic, the SUS scores and the NPS and things like, how easy or difficult, and just your basic Likert scales. And several years ago, we had quite a few clients kind of all in one cluster. They were really globbed onto that, delighted type of a word, right? Like we want to make a delightful experience. And we started realizing the way that we were gathering measurements wasn't getting us closer to understanding how people were feeling about the experience. We knew how easy it was. We knew if they were struggling, but we didn't know how they were feeling in the midst of it. So we started to kind of put our heads together about how can we measure emotion. And so the talk that I'm going to be giving is a little bit of an insight into a little bit of the process that we went through of how do you get this, what I kind of consider to be like the Z-axis, right? You've got how they did and what they said, but then there's how they were feeling. And so there's a lot of different ways. There's, you can strap a bunch of contraptions onto your brain and all of that, and it'll gather that information. But we have a real kind of more natural type of environment lab, and so we wanted to see how we could sort of work with self-reporting and how well people would be able to self-report emotions and how valuable that would be. So my talk is kind of talking about how kind of the arc of how we went around different ways of going about it and settled on a self-reporting method that we've now been creating for actual use for people.
Well, I think this topic is one that's intriguing and of interest to a lot of practitioners in our profession, so I'm glad we have you involved for the conference. And so we'll just see you here in a couple of months in Seattle.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, thanks a lot, Sarah.
Thanks.